Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. We have with us a special returning guest, my dear friend Lauren Southern. Lauren is a documentarian, cultural commentator, and all-around badass and mom. And Lauren, the reason I want to have you on is I'll be on social media, which I've been avoiding a little bit these days, although now that the Libertarian Party has nominated the greatest person ever to be their presidential candidate, I've been having the time of my life. And every so often I'll see people who I'm friends with beefing, like two people that I respect. And that always kind of makes me a little sad. Because I feel like Rodney King, can't we all just get along? Like I saw Tom Woods, who's a very dear friend of mine, arguing with Ben Domenech, but it didn't get too personal, it was substantive. I saw James Lindsay and Sargon and James Block Sargon. And then I saw you were arguing with Sargon, and it made me sad. And I'm like, all right, I'm not going to do my homework because you know how to run your mouth. So I wanted to catch up with you because it seems like there's been a lot of controversy around you in recent days. So as you tell it to me, the audience can learn about it as well from your perspective. Uh, is it at the level where you're exhausted? Is it that bad?
Ugh, the controversy, it's just what I do full time. I've been doing it for 10 years, just being controversial apparently, just in a new way now. I don't even remember, having a beef with Sargon, though. Maybe you're thinking the quartering? I always learn new things about myself whenever I do interviews with
I
people online.
thought okay, please double check everyone watching this. I thought I saw some snipe against you from Sargon, but I could be talking out of my ass. So you're having a beef with Jeremy the Quartering. Let's talk. Okay, what happened there?
Oh, we're fighting over currently, Jeremy and I are arguing over the new Furiosa Mad Max movie. He's stated that
Wait,
no one
stop, stop,
it
stop,
bombed at the
stop,
box
stop. Wait,
offices.
stop, stop,
Yes.
stop, stop. Of course, it's what it's not going to be immigration. It's not going to be Trump. No, no, no. It's going to be something that's substantive that everyone needs to have a strong opinion about.
Yeah.
Furiosa, the new Mad Max movie.
I'm like,
Ah,
"Well, if you wanna have me on the show to talk about the Furiosa beef on Twitter, I can
I,
do that."
I apparently we are. Let's hear it. Okay, what's the beef?
It is very stupid. Welcome to the
Yes.
internet. He said no one wants to see female protagonists in movies anymore, and that's why Furiosa bombed at the box office. And I don't know, I feel like in 2016, we were all arguing in the anti-SJW sphere that it's like, "No, we don't hate women in movies. We just hate women that are written badly when you, like, write them to be literally men, or you write them to be this girl boss that has nothing wrong with her at all, no flaws." Like, that's just terrible writing, and no one
Yeah,
wants
if
to
if
see it.
if you watch any drama on the WB, you would think the most dangerous combatant is a 5'1", 110-pound female, because she'll take on a room full of assassins and just with her hands kill them all, like, one after another, and you're like or, like, some big fat black chick, and she'll take them all down, and it's just like, this isn't how combat works. We have UFC. We know that a 250-pound guy is taking out this 110-pound chick who was a high school cheerleader 5 minutes ago.
It's super believable stuff. But even in,
Yeah,
like, the absurdity realm, like, look at Kill Bill, right? If
yeah.
it's written well, people still wanna watch it if it's a female lead, even if they're a bit absurd, as long as you're not going full political agenda. So I'm like, "Hey, come on, Jeremy." It's not that people don't wanna see female protagonists, it's that they just don't wanna see poorly written movies. That's it. But for some reason, he's just going hard on, "No, no one wants to see female protagonists. We're over it." And I'm like, we're really like leaning into the accusations that SJWs made against, the
Yeah.
anti-woke kind of sphere. Back in the day, they were like, no, you just hate women in movies. And now I guess people are just embracing that. I've found the last few years, a lot of the things that we were actively fighting against in kind of the dissident right wing conservative whatever you want to call it sphere, it's just been embraced like the other way around with the recent red pill takes, basically just feminism, but for men. We've got our own version of the man spreading articles, the, mansplaining, all that, but it's just fresh and fit going on a rant about how you should be able to cheat on your wife and she shouldn't be able to have any qualms about it. It's all just absurdity on either side of the gender spectrum. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. That's why I'm controversial right now.
Well, this reminds me of at Ann Coulter, on Ann, who wrote the foreword to your book, and I
Mhm.
asked her to define conservatism, and people can go back and look, and her answer is basically like stopping whatever the lefty bullshit is. But that's not an ideology in my view. That's a reaction, right? And it's just like you're still letting them define you. And I think in the same way that, the standard generic leftist has this kind of package of ideas that they care about at a given moment, like we have to care about Ukraine specifically, and we have to care about it at a 10 out of 10 right now. And if you don't care about it right now, even though I didn't know about it last week, even though there were problems bubbling under, like you should be read out of humanity. And then a lot of people on the right will be like, well, I hope they kill everyone in Ukraine, like performatively, right? You
Yes.
saw this with Stacey Dash when there was the issue with like what happens with trans people in bathrooms. And she's like, I don't care. They can pee in the bushes. It's like, you do care because you don't want people peeing in public. Like, that's not really your answer. You're just reacting against being forced, understandably, to care. So I feel like a lot of this is like, we're gonna put that girl boss in every movie. Like they brought back He-Man, but it's really about Tila. And it's like, oh, you're gonna make me have the female protagonist? Well, I don't want to see that at all. It's like, well, you're still just basically doing the opposite of what they're doing and letting them define you.
Exactly. Like, just write movies with better women. Just because, The Fall Guy or Flash or whatever movie came out and absolutely bombed doesn't mean no one wants to see male protagonists. It's
And you know
absolute
what?
absurdity.
Like I putting my money where my mouth is. If you look at the book cover right there, it's got four females on my last book: Margaret Thatcher, Ayn Rand, Emma
Mhm.
Goldman, and Elena Ceausescu, because I thought it was really interesting how they all had a very strong role in the rise and fall of the Soviet Union. I don't want to put Stalin on the cover
Mm.
because that was kind of whatever. So I think it's just incorrect. I think there's something uniquely interesting when a female protagonist, especially Thatcher, has to kind of fight on their own terms because it's going to be a twist, and that twist doesn't have to be this kind of late '60s feminist twist at all.
Absolutely. And like when I watch a movie with a male protagonist, I'm not going into feminism mindset and thinking it
Right.
is such a disgrace to the world that I as a woman am forced to view everything from the male perspective. I find it a fascinating process of learning, how do men perceive the world? How do they engage with the world? Especially like those more emotional, moody movies about growing up phases of men. And I think that, men and women both benefit from that experience. Men benefit from watching coming of age movies with women so that they can have healthier relationships with women, understand where they're coming from. It is the idea that excluding women from art and being protagonists in movies is in any way even a right-wing position or traditionalist position just shows one's own ignorance of art throughout history. Look at C.S. Lewis, probably one of the most, conservative traditionalist famous writers. He always said his best book, and one of my personal favorites, was Till We Have Faces, in which the main character is a woman and you live her life from a child to an old lady to the day she dies throughout the series of the book. And it is an incredible, amazing analysis of life experience as a woman, feeling ugly, all these different things. And there is not a single inch of C.S. Lewis that is woke or pushing progressivism.
Right.
So I'm baffled by the reactionary politics, as you said, to anti wokeness. They've become just as bad, in my opinion, just as bad.
I've seen this. Yeah, okay. Now I'm remembering more of what I saw of you recently, which is something which I would like to talk to you about is this whole tradcon stuff.
Mm.
Because something that I find insane, not insane, it's actually insidious, is the 1619 Project, which, for those who don't know, it's basically this reimagining that the New York Times supported of US history, starting with when slavery came over. And it's viewing all of American history through that lens. And I think it's indisputable that race, and certainly slavery, was an important part in American history, not just for what it meant for the black people who were here, but also for the Southern whites and Northern whites who had to grapple with this issue, how it caused tension between the two. This was an underlying current even before the Constitution, and it's clearly part of history and something. How did each individual founding father look at it? This is fascinating stuff. But there's this kind of tradcon parallel where it's this idea that like until like since from the 1950s earlier, women were completely subordinate to males. They were knew their place, and we don't have to guess because we can look at all of history's literature. We could look at the Bible. We could look at biographies, and even in the Bible, you have very strong women who maybe weren't the head of the household, but were sure running it. Lady Macbeth is a very obvious example of, yes, she's the wife, but she's the villain and she's in many ways the chief antagonist. She's the one pushing things. So this concept that historically speaking, a woman was under her husband's thumb is completely ahistorical and deranged and a very recent kind of, you know, very online phenomenon. And I
Mhm.
know you've been kind of talking about this a little bit. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what I just said and your own thoughts as well.
Yeah, so I've definitely come out with criticisms of the online version of trad life. It really has nothing to do with traditionalism. It is a perversion, a very bastardized version of what tradition is supposed to be. And quite frankly, if you are adhering to tradition, you're probably not online talking about it at all. um, but a lot of people have come back and feel that I am attacking the institution of marriage itself. Lauren, you don't want people to do the white picket fence. You don't want women to be at home raising children. That is not true. I think marriage is beautiful. I think it is wonderful. What I don't think is beautiful is thinking that life and success and happiness are found in listicles on the internet and that
Yeah.
every family situation is the exact
Yep.
same. And if as a girl, even if you're more educated than the man you're dating, even if you have more financial, ability to earn money and bring stabilization, no, you should be at home baking sour bread, right? The man has to go to work 9 to 5. He has to be the head of the household that makes every single decision, or you're not trad and you're going to be unhappy. You have to have 2.5 kids. Do you know the amount of people in my life that I look at and I'm like, you do not need to have children? Like, it
Yes.
would be a bad decision for you to have children, and that will not only will that not bring you happiness, that will not be good for the kids in that situation. Or the amount of people, and individuals watching this right now will know this or have had experienced it, in which the woman absolutely needs to be the head of the household. She is more financially responsible. She is more stable. The man maybe is dealing with addiction or gambling or this and that. The amount of families in real life that I have looked at where I'm like, woof, this dynamic just does not work for you. And if you try to apply it, everyone is going to be miserable. It's more families than not. And that's not to attack the trad lifestyle. It's just to say it's very difficult to achieve nowadays in a world in which you need dual income for the most part to afford rent, in which a lot of people don't grow up with a community. They don't grow up in a church. They don't grow up with all of these kind of social barriers. So when we're giving advice for success in life to a bunch of young people who don't have these social barriers, who don't have the family and maybe the wealth or the money or all these different options, and probably are going to be getting into less traditional relationships, repeatedly just throwing listicles at them and calling them degenerates because both of them work or they don't want kids, or they've failed to achieve this lifestyle, unhelpful, unhinged, detached from reality.
Folks, have you heard that the flavored air category is quickly becoming a leading alternative to vaping and smoking? Do you want to be like Dave Smith? Of course not. It's a whole new movement toward better habits, which is led by the sponsor of today's episode, Fume. What would happen if you dropped a vape from 40,000 feet in the air? Well, you might want to find out once you've tried Fume. We all have bad habits. You're out with friends, they're reaching for their bad habits. You feel the urge not to be left out. You ask to borrow one of theirs. Well, what if I told you there's a better alternative that helps you kick your bad habit in an enjoyable way, something that you can take with you? Flavored air isn't like vaping. If vapor was compared to sticky soda, Fume cores are closer to herbal tea. Fume has lots of delicious flavors to choose from, like crisp mint and orange vanilla. And with flavored air, you can satisfy your oral fixation through a passive diffusion system that utilizes no electronics, vapor, or combustion. Fume draws flavor to your mouth and fills the void that ditching a bad habit can leave. You still have something to reach for. No vapor, no nicotine, no batteries, and it looks awesome. And it's made to fidget with, so you can calm anxiety with magnets, snaps, and clicks. Fume has served over 300,000 customers, and you can be the next success story. For a limited time, use code MALICE to get a free gift with your journey pack. Head to tryfume.com, that's tryfum.com, and use code MALICE, or you can scan that QR code right on the screen to get a free gift with your order today. Folks, traditional bed sheets can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat, which can lead to acne, to allergies, to stuffy noses, and it is gross. Miracle Made offers a full line of self-cleaning, eco-friendly bedding such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent 99% of bacteria and require 3 times less laundry. They're infused with silver, and that prevents up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, which leaves them staying cleaner and fresher 3 times longer. No more gross odors. And by using these silver-infused fabrics, which were inspired by NASA, the Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, so you get better sleep every night. They're very comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Miracle Made sheets are designed for your skin. Bacteria can clog your pores. It causes breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Here's all you got to do. Go to trymiracle.com/malice to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo Malice at checkout, you get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you aren't 100% satisfied, full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/malice. Use code malice to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/malice to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Let's get back to the show. Yeah, and but speaking of detached from reality, back in the day, it would be very easy to kind of shelter your kid from bad influences, especially if we're
Mhm.
talking about small town life, rural life, right? Everyone in these little towns, this is both a plus and a minus. Everyone in these little towns was in each other's business. Like you knew who the village freak was, you knew who the village drunk
Yeah.
was. And you knew who that child toucher was as well. It's like, hey, kids, don't go to this person's house. This is like a thing. So but at the same time, if you had something that was a little bit aberrant in any way, even if it was benign, you would be ostracized, and that's what the city life was for. So city would draw the degenerates, but also the innovators, right? But
Yes.
now, and so you could really keep an eye on your kids and kind of have this safe space in a non-sarcastic way, in a positive way. But nowadays, with you could keep the phone away from your kids, but I mean, they're going to school. You're not able to have an eye on those kids 24/7. At a certain point, they're going to have access to information that you don't want, right? I say this as an uncle. I don't have kids of my own, but the point being, not analogous. And that's something that you can't hand wave away in the same way that when we talk about, let's suppose, gun rights, right? People are like, well, we should ban them. Okay, what happens when people you don't want get guns, right? Okay, you want to have this traditionalist lifestyle. That's commendable. What are you going to do when your kid's in school and he encounters people you don't want him to encounter, when they have cell phones, when he's at another house? Do you want him not to go to these kids' house and feel alone? Like, these are issues that
Yeah.
parents in this kind of mindset have to grapple with. And like you said, you just can't wave it away with name calling.
Yeah, and this is where I'm also seeing those parallels to like the social justice warriors I fought back in the day. You have delusional solutions being put forward. So
Right.
with the left, it was defund the police. First of all, that's never happening in reality.
Right.
That's not
Right.
going to happen, and it would cause a million problems with crime that you guys are going to need to grapple with. And then from the right, you say, okay, you've got women voting left wing, this, that. Repeal the 19th. Even if you wanted to make that happen, even if every single person on like right dissident Twitter wanted that to happen, it's just not going to happen in reality. It's not, it's as delusional as the repeal the 19th stuff. And it's just it's really like shocking and bizarre to watch people unwilling to or oh, here's another example. Sorry. Um being unable to grapple with versions of your reality that you want to exist that don't. So on the left, you have refugees. All
Yeah.
refugees are good people that we need to save, right?
Right.
Oh, a
And they're all
16-year-old
single
girl.
moms. Yeah,
Well,
they're
so
all
if a
yeah.
16-year-old girl gets assaulted in Sweden by one of these refugees,
Right.
what do the left do? They just completely ignore it, right?
Right.
Or you have a situation where someone has embraced trad life. It hasn't worked out for them. The man has abandoned them. Now a woman doesn't have a job and can't support herself. Well,
Right.
that woman must be lying. That's not a real situation. We can't grapple or address that. You very rarely see people grappling with these problems. And I'm starting to see them every day in my day to day life because I grew up within traditionalist communities. I grew up within people in right wing politics. So I'm watching, it's 30, it's like divorce o'clock for everyone. And I'm watching things fall apart. And it's been strange to see friends of mine who did the whole trad life thing. They got married to the boy from Bible study at like 19, 20 years old. They never got a job. They stayed at home with the kids. And now they've ended up divorced and they're in a far worse position than all of the women I know that went and got educated because they have no money now. They have no way to pursue. They don't even have time to get educated or to work because they have so many kids. And I'm like, whoa, this is going to be a more and more common phenomenon for people in these communities that I haven't seen one person within the dissident kind of right sphere addressing what do we do in that case? What do
Yeah,
we do in that
and I
situation?
think the thing that Christianity gets right is this idea of the corruptible human, right? That people give into temptation, people in power, you shouldn't expect them to govern or act in a noble, holy way, more often than not, they are going to stumble, and
Mhm.
it's often it stumble hard. So if you have this population where these males are heavily empowered at the expense of the women in the household and their children and their communities, what, they're never going to stumble? They're never going to act out in evil and depraved ways? Should they not have consequences with this? So I don't think they're necessarily playing and or is it or I guess the answer is always going to be, what's the woman's fault? But I mean, you can't have it both ways, that, she's subordinate to the husband, and then also she has ultimate control over his actions. Like, which one is it?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And uh, yeah, that idea of there's always something, a lot of women will get in trouble within, dissident spheres, definitely traditionalist spheres, for picking bad men or men who have bad habits or this or that. But then if they have those habits, well, you need to be prettier so they don't cheat on you. You need to comfort him more, encourage him more. This so it creates a weird paradox where it is always your responsibility to try to help a man move forward through his problems. You can't abandon him, you can't leave him no matter what. But then if you end up in a really awful situation, years on and years on, of like someone who's got addiction or this or that, well, then why did you choose someone bad? Why did you choose the wrong person? And people change throughout relationships and marriages as well.
Yes.
There's so many people, they'll marry a woman or a man, and then 3 years in, they've left the religion that they were both a part of. They've decided to leave the relationship. I have men that I know that have been left single fathers by a woman who took off and left. And should he have picked better? He probably thought he was making a damn good decision at the time because she had the same ideology as him and the same dreams then, but people change. So all of these kind of, it's the whole idea of trad life is very much coming from a place of, I want there to be a confirmed outcome. I want to have full control over life and know that if I do X, Y, Z, my life is going to be beautiful and perfect. And it makes people feel very comfortable having those kind of impenetrable ideologies, but it's built on, pillars of salt and sand. They fall apart when faced with the real world. And that's the amazing thing about the internet, is you can really build up these pillars of salt and sand and make them seem as stable as possible when all the people in your movement are like me. I pretended to be married publicly for 2 years because I just wasn't ready to talk about it. My everything looked super solid and great on the internet, but that had nothing to do with what was happening in reality in my life. And if people think that I'm the only one that has done that or is doing that, you're delusional. Like, all of the
Let
people in the political sphere are pretending their lives are different than what they are in reality. And I think what I'm trying to do is kind of create a congruence between the reality I'm witnessing and the political conversation that we're having.
Yeah, this lack of sympathy for people who are suffering, to me, is, especially for people who are religious, is kind of, humanity at its worst. Because let's suppose I should have picked better. That's true. Now what, though?
Yes.
You know what I mean? I pulled the trigger. What, you're not allowed to be young and dumb? Like, if we're talking about a faith that's about forgiveness, you can't be young and in love and naive. Like, that's kind of ridiculous to me. I think that comes with terror. It's one of the great things about being young, is that when you fall in love when you're young, it's going to be so different, because you're going to think this is just the most amazing thing, and it's going to feel very overwhelming. The other thing to what you were saying is, this whole, like, stick it out until the end might have worked back in the day when there was a huge social stigma against divorce. So when there's a huge social stigma about divorce, both parties are like, all right, we can't get out of this, let's figure out what we can make it work, if we can make it work. Now, I'm sure a lot of the times they did put in the work, and I'm sure a lot of times two people grew to hate each other, one became an alcoholic, and this is one of the reasons for prohibition, ostensibly, was that, instead of being at home, the man's in the saloon because couldn't be at home. He was miserable there, or maybe he was just a jerk. I mean, it could be either one. Who knows whose fault it is? But the fact of the matter is, this whole thing was in a different context, where now divorce, for better or worse, is extremely easy. So it's really hard to tell that guy or that female, well, you got to stick it out. It's like, at a certain point, it becomes a sunk cost. Like, why am I spending the rest of my life miserable being married to this, what, male or female,
Yeah.
when I could just be out the door and have better options?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, it was like a very straight, I still have trouble grappling with it myself because, when especially when I was younger, when I made a promise, like, I am going to get married and I'm going to stay married for the rest of my life. Like, I meant that, right? So certainly
Yeah.
coming from the background that I did, the idea of getting divorced is like, no, that's not possible. But I explained it a little bit in an article, but my husband at the time, he whenever he wanted me to do something, he would constantly threaten divorce. If you don't do X, I will divorce you. If you don't do Y, I will divorce you. And in my head, divorce is not an option. Like, I made a promise. We got to
Wait,
keep
can I
this
say
going.
something
So
also? Like, it's
yeah.
like when you're in a relationship, even just boyfriend, girlfriend, and you maybe see other people, once you put that out there, you can't unring that bell. And I think
Mm,
or like, if even in a job, you're like, "You know what? Maybe this isn't the right company for me." That's a really dangerous card to play because the other person will always hear that. And now things have shifted into another direction from, "I've made a commitment, we're sticking it out," to, "Oh, you've got a foot out the door." And that's an
mhm.
extremely different dynamic.
Yeah, yeah, but I was just too much in this brain of being I was so captured by the idea. I was so captured by the idea of what life should look like. And if I
Sure.
just follow all of the steps, I must be doing something wrong. I just have to cook better meals. I just have to look prettier. I just have to do like
Well, so
submit
you bought
more or
into all
whatever.
this.
Then I can achieve the goal of what life is supposed to look like.
So
Um,
you had bought
sorry,
into all this?
sorry.
You had
Yeah,
bought
I'm
oh,
not. I wasn't the perfect example of a trad life person. You know, I worked, I traveled the world, I had boyfriends before I got married. Like I wasn't the perfect example of a trad life person, but I certainly 100% went full send when I got married. Like, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to follow the advice. And these things just listicles don't apply to reality. Reality is complex. People have different backgrounds, different stories, different reactions. People can change on a dime overnight. But where was I going with this? Oh, right. I was going to say, so now I've been trying to grapple with the idea of divorce. It's been something that has like really psychologically sent me for a spin, that's for sure.
yeah, it's a
And
trauma.
when I've talked to a therapist, I know this is why I'm a full-blown lefty feminist progressive talking to therapists. Look at me go. No, the idea of fraud came up. They're like, okay, Lauren, so you don't think you can ever get married again? You don't think you can ever do any of that again because you made a promise and you believed in sticking to that. And they're like, have you ever heard of the idea of fraud? Like if you got married with that intention and someone else got married clearly without that intention, then the contract is moot. It doesn't exist. And I've had to do all of this like unpacking the ideological position I had put myself in order to just live a normal life again. And it's been extremely healthy. I'm in a much better position psychologically, but oh man, yeah, I think people take for granted the psychological boxes that stuff like trad life, progressive, whatever ideology can put you in that can like really destroy your future if you don't get out of them.
One of the reasons I never talk personal stuff is because the internet is such a gross place when it comes to this, and they will always
Mhm.
have an interest, and they think if you're talking about it, and they're not wrong in this sense, they're talking about it, then they have a right to kind of, pry and poke and prod. So you mentioned earlier that you spent 2 years not talking about this. You I mean, how did you decide to go public? Were you bracing yourself for the react you knew the react listen, any even remotely attractive female in these circles, she's going to have a lot of backlash from people who just want to hate on her because she's not giving them personal attention. You know this, like this isn't
Yeah.
news to you, or you've got to be a grifter, or this or that, or
Yeah.
like you're on your knees, blah blah. You know the whole. I'm sure you hear it 800 times a day.
Oh, yeah.
So, what made you be like, all right, I got to come clean? Or what made you kind of like, I can't talk about this? These are big, people don't realize what a big deal these things are because Taylor Lorenzo's right. You are dealing often with the worst people on the internet.
Yes. Well, the people who are going to be commenting the most are necessarily going to be the most detached from reality
Yeah.
because they're spending so much time online. So
Yeah.
they're the things that they say they would never say in person. They could never. I actually I was in a store the other day and there was a guy who clearly knew who I was staring at me and he just kept walking through the aisles back and forth with like his head on a swivel and I literally was like, "Hello?" And he like just like froze and then just kept walking staring at me and I had to get out of the store because it got so weird but I was like man this person I couldn't tell if they hated me from like the right I'm pretty sure they were like a far left progressive type but
Okay.
they when they're in a real life scenario they literally glitch out
Yeah.
like they
Yeah. Yeah.
cannot engage they
Yeah.
he's probably like creating arguments to say on Twitter in his head but these people are non-functional in
Wait,
reality
can I
because
tell
the
you
thing
something?
yeah
I was at the gym once, and a fan was wearing one of my shirts, and I walked up to him and I go, "Hey, that better be a real one, not a bootleg." And he goes, "Can you hold on a second?" And like for him, the matrix was breaking. It was really funny. He's like, "All right, I can talk now." It was very nice conversation. But you can imagine, like, people have this online Lauren Southern, and you're a real person, and there's a part of his brain, I'm sure, that's like, "Wait a minute, if I go up to this nice lady at this grocery store and start telling her she's a Nazi, I this is not gonna go well."
No. Like, everyone in real life, whether it be the people that are like, "You're a dumb slut, whore, you're a Nazi," or this, you do that anywhere in meat space, and, like,
Yes.
someone's gonna drag you out of the store, and, like, you're gonna get punched in the face. These people are non-functional in reality and unhinged, but unfortunately, they are going to be the majority of responses in a lot of cases because they are simply the people that are the most online. But yeah, so when you keep that in mind, it's okay. The criticism is fine because I'm aware of the detachment between reality. What was your question, Michael? What were you
Like,
even asking me? I've lost it.
what made you like, you
Oh, what
held this
made me
back, you
talk
just said, for
about
2
it?
years, then what made you decide to talk about it? Like, that's there's a lot going on there thought process-wise, I'm sure.
Yeah, oh man. There's a lot of background details there that I could get into, but it would be in the weeds. I'm sure I will one day, but a lot of it was I was literally like getting gray hair. I was literally so stressed not being honest and not being able to have just this is my life
Yeah.
style conversations with people. Keeping secrets is never good for you. It ages you. It
Hey, look,
keeps you up at night. Yeah, like I literally was getting gray hair. So eventually I'm
I'm
like, I
filled with
just can't be
secrets.
held hostage by this anymore. Oh, and
Yeah,
here's this is going to be a little bit of a crazy detail, but I don't talk about that often. But when I was married, my ex kept like a list of media figures left and right that hated me and let me know it was like a contingency plan. If I ever misbehaved or didn't do what he wanted, he would like reach out to them all. If they were left wing, he'd say that I was just like a Nazi, racist, this, that, and the other, anti feminist. If they were right wing, he'd say I'm a whore, fake right winger, like to try and ruin my reputation if I didn't obey. So like I always felt he
holy
had this over my head and wanted to write the narrative of why we separated. And I'm like, if I don't just come out and tell the truth about what happened, then he's going to get to write the narrative to destroy me, essentially. Because he knows I don't want to talk about it really, because I didn't want to put any of this public. I don't think it's healthy for kids to have this kind of stuff on the internet. I don't but it definitely got to a point where you have enough people prying in your life, and this is where I work. This is where I is my creative space, the internet. It's where I put things up. And if I don't tell the truth about what happened, then someone else is going to tell it for me in their way, and it's not going to be accurate. And honestly, it was very freeing. It was very freeing talking about it. I do want to stop at some point and just say,
of course,
all
yeah.
right, I've told my side. It's time to move on with life. But um,
Wait, hold on, I'm sorry.
yeah.
If as someone born in the Soviet Union, if someone who was my partner said to me, "I've got this like naughty list," right? And there's two sides to it. And like one of the reasons I've been advocating for national divorce is because there's this argument that, well, if we try to leave, they'll just come and kill us. I'm like, yeah, that means you have to try to leave right now. It's that's not an argument to try to work things out, right? So if
Mhm.
what went through your head, I mean, to me, this sounds like obviously it's extreme manipulation. It's blackmail. It's not indicative of a healthy relationship, and it's frankly, it's very womanly. Like, this is what the ex-girlfriend does. Am I wrong though? When you leave, the ex-girlfriend tells we have all these words in the internet. Like the definition of a sociopath is the ex-boyfriend doesn't pretend to care about your feelings anymore. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like if you leave, I'm gonna snitch on you and have that's very catty.
Yeah, no, it's not great. It's I mean, it's even hard for me to talk about that. Like I never even wanted to bring this up publicly, but I feel like once again, my freedom and my mental health and my psychological ability to do what I need to do for my child and myself is most
Yeah,
important. But it took me a long time to even talk about this. And the reason I was even in that situation is because I genuinely did love my husband
yeah,
deeply. And you know, when
and
you love
trust
someone
him.
and you believe in someone and you trust someone, you think to yourself, they are having a bad moment. This is some sort of trauma. This is something that has come up. And if I just love more and more and more, I can fix it and help them through it. But at some point, I do think it was a bit of a blessing that he left us because that gave me the free reign to just be like, "Whew, I can get out without feeling like I feel no guilt because I know I did everything." You
Do you know,
know?
I'm imagining him going to these lefties and being like, "Guys, she's a Nazi." They're like, "Yeah, we know." And then him going all the right wingers and go, "Guys, she's fake. Yeah, we know." And it's like, "Oh, it didn't work at all."
Well, that's literally what yeah, that's what happened. It's, no, it's very funny to see as well, like, because there's so many obviously, there's a ton of stuff that's gone on in the background that I can't talk about that much because of
Sure.
legal reasons and everything, but there's, like, so many documents where it's he'll have sent stuff to people where it's like, "She's a evil anti-feminist, she's radicalizing people and family members into being anti-trans, and she's an international terrorist," and blah, 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 and then I see all these, like, right-wingers like Pearl be like, "This is an oppressed man," when it's like, the ideology would totally be anti-Pearl, would totally be anti all of these people if it was, like, convenient, so it's just anyways, I need
Okay,
to
we don't
not
have
go
to
into
dwell on
too
this. I'm not here
deep
to cause drama, obviously. Folks, Homes.com knows that when it comes to home shopping, it's never just about the house or condo. It's about the home. And what makes a home is more than just the house or property, it's the location and the neighborhood. If you have kids, it's also schools, nearby parks, transportation options. That's why Homes.com goes above and beyond to bring home shoppers the in depth information they need to find the right home. And when I say in depth, I'm talking deep. Each listing features comprehensive information about the neighborhood, complete with a video guide. They also have details about local schools with test scores, state rankings, and student to teacher ratio. They even have an agent directory with the sales history of each agent. So, when it comes to finding a home, not just a house, this is everything you need to know all in one place. Homes.com, we've done your homework. Let's get back to the show. I'm just, was it like, because I remember you left commentating for a couple years. Then you
Mhm,
made this kind of comeback video explaining what had been the situation and so on and so forth. And you kind of had you called it a manifesto, I believe, at the time. And like this
mhm,
was your views, like in your own terms. And I know we talked about at the time that it was very cathartic for you to be like, all right, if people care what happened to me, here's what happened from my perspective. I'm a human being. Here's the receipts as I see it. And I'm not going to do it in Twitter 280 characters. I'm going to do it at length because it's a complicated situation. Here's the, and and if you actually care, just sit and watch this long video and then you'll get a full understanding because life is complex, right? So was there this feeling of catharsis when you're like, you know what, I'm just going to put this out there. I know I'm going to get heat, but I have to do this to move on. And I don't have to think
mm.
about it and live this kind of phoniness anymore.
Oh, completely. My hair stopped graying.
Yeah.
Like, my hair stopped graying, I started sleeping better, I was able to finally, like, put that behind me. It's really strange, though, watching how people react to that sort of catharsis and telling your story, because my life is significantly better now than it was when I was happily married to the public, like,
Yeah.
healthier relationships, healthier relationship with reality. Like, I can acknowledge reality better. My son is healthy, happy, wonderful, thriving community. Everything's doing so well, but then I have because I've talked about this moment in my life and I've said, "Okay, I am divorced. Here's what happened." Everyone comes out and says, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry that you're not in the situation you were in before. Like, we wish you were still married." Because that's what they perceive in their mind as, like, this is
Yeah.
goodness. Well, marriage is good in a good situation, but marriage can be very bad with bad people for each other. So it's like, not, it's the idea of being together being inherently good and being divorced being inherently bad. It's been hard for me to get those messages and be like, no, no, you don't get it. Like, it's better now. I don't fit into the archetype, but that's a lot of reality. But yeah, it was extraordinarily cathartic, really good for me. And a lot of people did get it and do understand, like yourself, and you can see the nuances of it all. But because I come from that more right wing traditionalist space, and I do respect a lot of the people there and I do love them, it's been strange for me to kind of have that conversation and try to explain to people that no, 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 this is healthier in some circumstances, and bridge that gap. That's been the one challenge, but overall, yeah, very cathartic. Very
Do
cathartic.
did all those stories really matter to you because you're Canadian and you guys say it every 5 seconds anyway?
All this yeah, exactly, exactly. It's just a compulsion. I'm
What do
getting
you
over it.
what do you think the traditionalists get right the most?
Hmm. I
Or what
think
were the best aspects of that lifestyle that in your opinion and experience?
well, there's trad and there's tradition. They're
Yeah,
2 different things, right? Um, I think the one thing that sets, like, the West apart from "Ooga booga, we're gonna put women in burqas and stone them from being raped" kinda culture is there's, like, an intelligence level where both men and women are educated, and if 2 people wanna be in a I've seen really healthy traditional relationships where both the man and the woman are highly educated individuals, and they look at each other and they say, s- based on all of the skills and abilities we have, it makes more sense for you to be at home raising the kids. It makes more sense financially. You're extraordinarily intelligent. You will be great at educating the children. Sometimes you'll have input for my business, which houses we're going to buy, this and that. And they create a actual partnership with mutual respect and love in which they both acknowledge their different types of intelligence and they just fulfill that they're a unity, they're a team and you want both people in your team to be strong. You want both people in your team to be intelligent for raising those kids. That kind of traditionalism, beautiful, amazing. Those kids get a stable home. They get an intelligent mother, an intelligent father. They see them working together to, sharpen each other's axes and, um, yeah, you will be an extremely successful family if you can do that. But that doesn't, the idea that it's a very ego centric idea that, oh, because I am a man, I inherently have the right to be the lead of the family. Well, if you're a good man, sure.
yeah,
But if you're struggling with addiction, if you're unhinged because you're online 12 hours a day, if no, you don't have a right to lead a family and no woman should follow you. I want men to be strong men. I want men to be great leaders. I want women to be intelligent mothers and stewards of community and civilization. But it's more a question not of falling into you have to be a wife, you have to be a father, you have to be the head, you have to be the submissive one. It's a matter of if you have good people, they will naturally fall into the roles that suit their gender and their skills best, good, intelligent people. But we're trying to force people that shouldn't be in these roles in these positions, like forcing people that should definitely never have children to have children is not making the world better inherently because they're doing the have kids checklist, right?
yeah. It's also the kind of thing. If 5 minutes ago you couldn't handle the availability of pornography and this was ruining your life, are you really now in a position to be running a household, or do you have
Mm,
some issues that you need to self control or whatever it is to worry about? It just seems to be this. They go very much hand in hand. This kind of mindset of like we should ban porn, which I can understand the arguments for, and like the man should be running that household. It's like you can't even be running your own body, healthy in a healthy manner. So just take a step back before you're assigning yourself this kind of I'm a natural leader position. I saw this all the time because I went to Bucknell, which was this country club school, and I'd never been around like waspy white people before coming from Brooklyn. And they all had this idea that they're like, Margaret Thatcher used to say that having power, being a lady is like having power. If you have to tell people you are, you aren't. So, like, if you have to tell people that you're a natural leader, no one says I'm a natural leader, and everyone's like, oh yeah, we should listen to him. That's the surest sign that you're compensating or you're not, and you have to kind of declare that. And it's just amazing how in this space, everyone thinks that they're a natural leader, which by definition is impossible.
yeah, yeah. I love I saw like a meme on Reels or something where this girl was saying whenever a guy comes up to me and says, "I'm an alpha," she'll just go, "Oh, is that a furry thing? Like is that like a what is that? Oh, I'm sure you are." Like you're like you said, no guy has to come into a room and say he's an alpha if he's an alpha. He just commands the room with amazing conversation, treating people respectfully and having his shit together. Like,
Yeah, I have spent a lot of time around like world class UFC fighters or like people who are like Navy SEALs. They're not macho in the sense of posturing, right? It's kind of
Mm.
like having a pet German Shepherd. It's like a funny goofball and you can mess around with it. But then when there's someone at the door, you realize, oh, this thing is dangerous and can kill in 2 seconds. It's a switch, but they're not carrying themselves. It's like people who are weaker than them to be like, look how tough I am. I am awesome on their forehead. It's just very performative and very and they're also easy to clown because all these tough guys have a great sense. They're always busting each other's balls, right? They have great sense of humor about themselves because if they're doing such intense work, they need that pressure valve, and they also don't want to take themselves too seriously because ego trips them up. So
Yes.
the real tough alphas, you can clown them all day because they love to laugh. They're so secure. There's nothing you could say that's going to make, but the ones who are insecure, who aren't really those alphas, you clown them, they start flying off the handle. And that's where things really get
Yes.
fun for me personally.
Yeah, and when I talk to women, like, women always talk about this idea, like, even with the short men discourse or something, it's not even the issue that he's short, it's if he's hyper insecure about it, then they're going to torment you. Everything you do will be a little thing like, "Are you slighting me? You're wearing those heels to slight me," or this or that. And I'm not saying that short men don't have more trouble, but you get one that is charismatic and, like, really confident in himself, he's certainly gonna have a better time than the guy that's extraordinarily insecure and taking it out on everyone around him about it.
You mean Tom
But
Woods?
yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Do you mean Tom Woods?
Tom Woods short? I don't know what anyone is on the internet. Everyone's lying. It's all
I just will take any opportunity to clown Tom that I can get.
you know what pisses me off about
Yes, he
Tom
is an
Woods?
alpha.
I
Go
know
ahead, please.
very little about Tom Woods, but that man, whatever I think I've even told you this. Whatever email, like, spam Bangladeshi company he has, like, doing push notifications on my phone, I have unsubscribed from his newsletter 100 times over the past 10 years, and he still gets me Tom Woods webinars every 3 days in my inbox. I don't understand how he's doing it. How many times do I have to unsubscribe?
You can't get rid of him. You can only get him down to undetectable.
I bet if I oh my gosh, it's unbelievable.
What an odd endorsement of Tom Woods. That little fucker, which is what people usually call me, he's got it all figured out. Clearly.
I can he will never let me forget about him. He's
That is
always
amazing.
present.
That is amazing. I don't know, and apologies if you're beefing with this person as well. I had Bap on a few weeks ago,
Who?
and Bronze Age Pervert.
Oh, no, I'm not beefing with him.
Okay.
I think I had his book at one time and read it. It was kinda funny.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had come to a conclusion, he agreed that this space that you and I are both broadly in has gotten fundamentally stupider over the last couple of years. Is that your opinion as well?
Oh, absolutely. It's like the general intelligence of people in the online right is deeply it's getting much, much worse, and I think it's more like the red pill spaces, in my opinion, and I talked about this a bit in a recent video I did, um, talking about cultural differences. You're seeing this mass immigration occur, and a lot of people, for example, from India, whether you like to acknowledge it or not, they're extraordinarily sexist there. Even mainstream media, like National Post, will write articles on, man, we're really importing some serious sexism from India here to Canada. And people don't realize as we import the world and these different cultures, those people are also coming online with us. They're interacting with our media in our local area. If there's a story in Vancouver, if there's a story in DC, wherever it is. Now we've got tons of people interested in that, commenting, that are from different cultures. And I think it has created a general ooga boogafication of our conversation online, where you have these people that don't see, you know, women as human. And then they're coming on and they're liking all of these red pill posts, and everyone thinks, oh, the right wing is growing. Don't know about that, guys.
Oh my god, I didn't even realize that. That's hilarious.
Right? And it's like they're actually just getting a lot dumber, and unfortunately, you're aligning with people that are not going to help your cause very well in the long run because they just don't have the intellectual prowess or
And
even
who you
language
and
skills
people
to
who you
do so.
despise, people who your entire identity is about keeping away from your country.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like when I think about the West pre-mass migration, um it was way less sexist in both ways. In both ways. Like, you used to be able to joke about all of your friends of different ethnicities, make racist jokes, everyone would have a laugh together. People, when I was at school, would be like, make me a sandwich, Lauren. I didn't care because it wasn't coming from this malicious place of like genuinely hating women. It was just they're taking the piss, and it was kind of
Yes.
funny, and didn't care. And now things have gotten really weird. Like, definitely, you've had women that are experiencing sexual assault more because of mass migration. So they're becoming more feminist because they're like, wow, I'm literally getting raped. I'm literally getting like groped by people that are coming into my
And then
culture. And I
told it's
literally
not
have men in my,
happening.
sorry?
And then told it's not happening.
Yeah, and then told it's not
That's the
happening.
one.
Then told it's not happening. So of course the women are kind of losing it, like, wow, what's going on? And then you have the men getting frustrated with the women, losing it about all the sexism coming that's largely being imported. And then they're going, and the highest view count pages are these fresh and fit pages that, quite frankly, are getting all of their views because of, I think, a lot of third world immigration. But that's now going to the top of these men's feeds, and they're following them. And it's just like this growing low IQ, horrible conversation that didn't even exist before when I was younger and things were functioning better and society was like the gears were turning. When I was younger and I went to a traditional like Christian family that were doing well, middle class, their household, even the moms that were stay-at-home moms were like studying to be lawyers on the side. And everyone was like, yeah, that's cool. We love that. We love an educated woman. She raised the kids and then she went and started a business on the side. Like it was very normal. The idea that women were like ball and chain to the kitchen, this is actually a pretty strange, it's like a working class, mass immigration from countries where women don't have rights. Not even working class. I don't even know where it's coming from, but it's like a new, very strange phenomenon that I did not grow up witnessing within, healthy, functioning WASP communities.
Hi, it's Kellyanne Conway.
And I'm David Plouffe, and we have some surprising news. We're teaming up for a brand new podcast, The Campaign Managers.
I know what you're thinking. Why would Plouffe and Kellyanne do this?
Because frankly, Kellyanne, we disagree on just about every issue, except about what it takes to win a presidential campaign. Kellyanne ran Donald Trump's campaign. I ran Barack Obama's campaign. We understand things like early vote. We understand how to leverage an opportunity and how to play defense when you've made a mistake.
2024 is an election like none other. And David Plouffe and I are going to take you behind the scenes like no one else can.
We're going to lean into our one-of-a-kind experiences, really educate our listeners about what to keep an eye on, and discuss the current strategies and tactics that both campaigns are deploying on the campaign trail.
We're going to disagree, we're going to dissent, but we're going to deliver. You won't want to miss this unique pairing. Join us by listening to The Campaign Managers with Kellyanne Conway and David Plouffe.
The first episode is out May 22nd, available wherever you get your podcasts.
So I don't know. I'm sorry. This question, I'm sure you get asked this question all the time, and it's in an aggressive way, and I'm asking it in a non-aggressive way, but it just sounds aggressive. Why are you still in Canada?
Why am I still in Canada? I love it here. I love the nature. I love the I have flown all over the world.
Yeah.
And every time I land in British Columbia and I breathe in the pine air, it feels like I'm breathing for the first time in however long I was gone for. I'm obsessed with the landscape here. I love the people here. I love my family here. The animals. I love it here. I love it. And it makes me so sad to see what Trudeau has done with the place because
Right.
people are basically paying 60% taxes. The native population that used to exist in places like Vancouver or Toronto, gone, completely replaced. We're a majority minority population, and no one's more pissed about it than the immigrants, actually. I mean, the locals obviously are upset, but they've been so gaslit by the media that they can barely process what's going on. The immigrants are like, holy, I tried to escape this. What the hell? It's not the country I grew up in, but it's that getting pushed further and further out. Like I just keep going, I'll go into the woods in the Yukon or something if I have to eventually, but I love this country.
Do you see any possibility of Pierre, I can't pronounce his last name, when he takes over as PM next year? Do you think there's any possibility of him reversing some of Trudeau's nonsense? Do you think it's going to be more of the same? I keep hearing both sides and more people saying the second than the first.
It's a positive thing. I hope he wins because he can reduce or prevent, the Canadian Online Harms Act from going through, which will at least preserve our ability to talk about these problems for a little longer. So that's good. I think he's going to be better on taxation. I think he's going to be better on reducing, carbon tax kind of stuff that's been devastating us for a while. But he doesn't seem to want to broach the immigration question. And that's because they are such a large voting bloc now that I think they're terrified of saying, like, we're going to we got to stop this. We got to stop this 500,000 people immigrating a year to our 30 million country where we have no houses and only build 200K houses a year. It's absurd. The math doesn't math, right? But they don't seem to want to talk about it. And unless Pierre like literally shuts down immigration right away, Canada's still headed off that slope.
Let me, I thought I almost did a Jesse Lee Peterson. Let me ask. I thought that Canada's immigration system was in many ways preferable to the US's because you guys have all these points and basically although the numbers are high, it's very much staggered towards people who are high educated, net producers, and those are the kind of immigrants you want. So it's not this kind of free for all. Is that mistaken?
No, it's a free for all right now. Per capita, we're bringing in like more people than the States do, significantly more. One of the highest immigration rates per capita in the
Oh
world right
wow.
now. And one thing that, when I was in Australia, the thing that I noticed about Australian and Canadian immigrants was everyone who failed their English test to get into Australia would just go to Canada after because they had
Are you
lower like.
serious?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
guys were plan
absolutely.
B. Australia's plan B?
Australia was plan A for a lot of people because they
Yeah,
have a
you're
much
plan
better.
B.
Yeah,
Canada.
Canada's plan B.
How low have you sunk? I'm not kidding.
It's not good. The healthcare system is much better in Australia. It's because it's not as overwhelmed. They're like an island and they're more
Yeah.
strict with who they let in, as evidently. Um,
And who they let out.
they wouldn't even let me out for years. It was wild. I was held
Yeah.
captive there. It still is a prison island, but with good healthcare. So a lot of them wanted to get over there. But yeah, the problem is they cheat as well. Like I talk to my extremely progressive friends because I still have a lot of childhood friends that have gone into like normal jobs. They're teaching at universities. They've got all these different jobs in civil society that they're having to contend with the mass immigration rates. And they're calling me up like, Lauren, what is going on? Every single one of my Indian students is cheating on their tests. Like, do they just have like a completely different culture than us? And I'm like, yes, yes, they do actually. And so this has been a consistent problem we're facing in Canada where they'll go to get tests to become drywallers, they'll go to get tests to become drivers of big machinery and equipment, and they're allowed to bring translators with them to do these tests. And the translators will be paid an extra fee, like an extra $500, $1,000 to cheat on the test for them. So they're getting all these qualifications to operate equipment in this country that they don't know how to operate. They're cheating on the tests. And
Wait,
all of
hold
this
on,
is
hold
just
on,
getting
hold on.
exposed right now.
America doesn't have an official language. Canada is officially bilingual, right? Everything has to be in English and in Quebecois
French.
French.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that people who can't do either of those languages, the government still helps them take a test?
You can look it up. It's all like CTV News, Global. They've caught these people. And the current problem we're dealing
Wait,
with
but
is mass.
hold on, Lauren. It's cheating to bring the translator, in my opinion.
Yes!
That's my
Thank
point.
you. But it's like racist. We're a post-national state, according to Trudeau,
What does
right?
that mean?
It means we aren't a nation anymore. I don't know. I don't know what we're supposed to be.
That's one of those terms that doesn't mean anything. A
It
post.
means if you were born in Canada, you pay a lot of tax dollars to import a bunch of people to use your healthcare system, and then you get to live in squalor with 15 Indian students on fake
Listen,
visas.
I'm an immigrant. English was my second language, right? We didn't speak English when we came here. My dad had to be a courier, and I sat my little Ruski ass at home in front of the TV, and I watched Three's Company and Sesame Street and Electric Company, and I learned how to speak English like a normal person. So I think it's just kind of it's just shocking to me that when you're taking a test is a measure of proficiency, right? Driver's test, medical, certainly the bar, it's there explicitly as a mechanism to weed out people from professions where it's some technical expertise is necessary, or else people are going to get harmed or hurt. Like that's the only reason to have tests, unless you have like some kind of cartel, which may them end up being. Point being, if this person isn't capable of just using the language of the test, like I don't, the fact that you should help him, why are you giving him a test at all?
Yeah, no, it's so funny that you even say that because I'm like, they're cheating, Michael. They're cheating. Isn't this bad? And you're like, Lauren, they can't even speak the language, and that's just so normal to me at this point. I'm like,
Right.
oh yeah, that's probably pretty bad too.
Yeah, you don't get to bring your like security dog to take the test. Or maybe you do, but the dog. But I what do I know?
Absolutely, absolutely, you do. Have you seen the hunger strikes in Prince Edward Island?
No, but are you proud that I know what PEI is and that
I
there's a
am
secret
very
treasure
proud of
there?
you. Very
Yeah.
impressed. I
Okay.
think a lot of people just discovered it's a thing, even in Canada for the first time. I forgot it existed until these hunger strikes happened because there's only like 100 or 200,000 people there.
But it's a province too. It counts just like the others. But tell me about what the hunger strike is.
So, like, this is the worst part about the immigration we're experiencing in Canada right now is no one gives a shit about becoming Canadian. They couldn't care less if this whole country got nuked tomorrow.
But can you
They
blame
just
them? If the prime minister is telling you we're a post-nation state or post-state nation, whatever he says, why would you have any sense of loyalty to this country?
Yeah, yeah, they're just here for economic reasons. They're
Right.
here because they want the healthcare system, whatever. They wanna extract as much as they can from the country as fast as they can. And they're, like, gaming the system, so they'll look, "Okay, which province is gonna have the fastest citizenship? What do I need to do? Which route?" And the main goal people have right now is becoming students. So getting a foot in the door on a student visa. And you're not even supposed to be working, but what's happening is we're accepting 500,000 immigrants a year to Canada. And then on top of that, you have hundreds of thousands of students coming in that are taking all the summer jobs from the young people. They're not supposed to be working, but they are coming on student visas for the sole purpose of working and using our systems. And then they found out that if you go through PEI, you have a better chance to fast track residency. So a bunch of these people have gone to PEI, which is a very small
Yeah.
area. So it's demographically shifted like overnight. And then the PEI government are like, we can't handle this amount of immigrants. And not only that, but the way they're getting in on these visas is they're going to fake universities. So they've built these degree mills out of strip malls all over Canada, and then they send recruiters to Punjab, like one region of India, that say, give us $10,000 and we'll admit you to this strip mall university in PEI or Ontario or whatever. And they come over and they get all of these fake degrees and then say, all right, I'm educated, give me residency. And basically, the government discovered that a bunch of these degrees are just fake, like literally invented, and are now threatening to kick them out. So now all the students in PEI are on a hunger strike all over the streets saying we're going to like kill ourselves or whatever from not eating if you don't give us residency with our fake degrees here. And a bunch of progressive white women have like joined their hunger strike, but then it just got uploaded in the Telegram chat that all of the immigrant men are like sexually harassing all these white women that have joined the Telegram. So it's just absolute chaos. It's wonderful. Very Canadian.
But it's not very Canadian because the thing you guys had over us all the time is you guys were there was this low key this passive aggressivism in Canada where it's like you would laugh at what a mess we like our cities were dirty and there's rioting. You guys were genteel. Everything's just so put together. It's a very British kind of sense, and this kind of turning up your noses at how like America's just like the trailer park version, right? And but
Mhm.
this is not the Canada that I certainly grew up with, as you know, our northern neighbor. This kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, it's oh, you're putting me in nostalgia brain. I've like deleted those files so I didn't have to think about it. But I'm like, yeah, this is Canada. And now you're like, wait, no,
It's
Canada.
not. I watched every episode of Degrassi, including the original series, and there was this. The thing, Toronto was always my second favorite city, and I said this not with irony or sarcasm because it was like a school play version of New York. There was a sweetness to it. There was an innocence to it. It's like we're trying, but it's like that's really cute. You're just a kid, but it's adorable, and it really felt welcoming. And there was a lot going on, and it's interesting, and I loved it. And now seeing what Canada has become, I can't imagine what it's like for you. I was a big fan of Canada, and now it's just like, what I've asked you this before. I still don't understand how a country of frontiersmen in a very inhospitable climate out soy boyed America.
Yeah, I think Canadians are a very sensitive people, and I know we make fun of them for saying sorry, but the original Canadians, they actually deeply care about how everyone around them feels and
Sure.
wanting the community to be beautiful and wanting it to
Yeah.
be good. And when you find little towns and cities that are a little more northern or not near those like immigration hubs, you still find these enclaves of what Canadian culture was. And it was beautiful. And unfortunately, as Ayn Rand talked about, that pathological altruism
Yeah.
was very much, it was the politicians that had the pathological altruism. and they used it against the people, and they used it for their own benefits. There's not a single Canadian out here that demanded mass immigration. There's not a single Canadian
Right.
that demanded 60% tax rates. They got manipulated and lied to by their politicians who they trusted, who want to keep the property taxes or keep the property prices up. They want to keep the market inflated so that there's not a crash in the economy, so that they keep their portfolios high. So they need mass immigration so the bubble doesn't collapse. And they're doing all these own things for their own purposes, for their own political purposes that no one in Canada actually asked for. So as much as I will joke about the Canadian people, this was politicians taking advantage of them, and unfortunately them being too kind and trustworthy. And this is why I think, alternative media is important, and it's important to be loving and have a heart for those who were lied to, that outsourced their trust to a media they thought was on their side.
Who would you regard as lower IQ, the migrants or people who are newfies?
Depends which migrants. Depends. No, we used to have pretty what, like you were saying before, I thought Canada was really good with him. When I was younger, when you met someone who had migrated from another country to Canada, they were like a doctor, they were a pilot, they had an impressive job. And it actually reduced racism generally, because everyone you met that was of a different ethnicity was like a pretty successful, interesting individual that spoke the language. There has never been more racism in Canada in my entire life than today, both against the white people and against the non-whites. But it's because, oh, wow, you've brought a bunch of people into your culture that have no way of even communicating with one another because they don't speak the same language. They have entirely different religions, entirely different views on gender and roles and positions in society and
And no
families. And
plan
wow,
and no plan
suddenly it's
and no plan to integrate them. That's the key.
no plan to integrate them, and they're literally living in enclaves. If I go to like Richmond, around Vancouver area, all of the signs selling property are in Chinese. They don't even bother putting them in English anymore because they know no one that's like a white Canadian, or even just an original Canadian that is maybe Chinese heritage but speaks English. Those people aren't buying there. You know, it's entirely marketed for the Surrey, Guru Nanak Temple area. I'm pretty sure it's like over 80% Indian. You just don't go there if you're white. It's We've got like the prison system all
Yeah,
around
yeah.
us. Everyone's got their own little enclaves and gangs based on racial divide. It's crazy that they ever thought this was going to work.
Yeah, that's what I remember about Toronto, a couple of decades ago. It was extremely diverse, but not like New York, where you had Chinatown and Harlem and Spanish Harlem. Everyone down the street was like the UN. You never knew where they came from, and everyone got along. It was diversity done correctly. And obviously, if you're selecting very heavily for highly educated, intelligent people who are trying to make a better life for themselves and are going to integrate, it's going to be very system from just opening the door, come on in and make yourself at home. Folks, head on over to malice.locals.com, where Lauren will take questions from you, the supporters. Lauren, we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
Learning about Tom Wood's height and us discussing his emails. I still don't know what he does. I think I listened to one of his podcasts like 10 years ago, maybe, but this mutual understanding of Tom Woods being a menace was an important moment for me.
You are welcome.
Pluto TV has over 300 channels and thousands of TV shows and movies for whatever mood you're in. Just open the app and something good will already be playing because it's curated by people who love TV as much as you do. So if you're in the mood for comedy, there's 18 channels that'll make you laugh. Looking for drama? We got so much of it, you'll cry tears of joy. Reality shows, game shows, sports, Star Trek, and even more Star Trek. No matter what mood you're in, there's something on Pluto TV. Just download the app and start streaming. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.